Another edition of 89 with Steve Smith Sr., James Palmer with you. Steve, you were in the dentist chair yesterday. Is today a better day than yesterday?
No, today just got worse. Let's go. I'm spicy Steve today. Let's go.
We're going to get right into the good, Steve. Davante Adams is the #1 talked about player in the NFL right now. This is an easy question, and this is one that I know you can answer better than anybody else on the planet. Can Davante Adams still pay? Is he worth what is being asked in return?
You know I love you, right?
Yeah.
Great. I love working with you. All the people that keep asking, can Davante play? Is he worth? First of all, everyone that is making that statement are idiots.
Write that down.
And the reason I say they're idiots is because everyone is pointing to Davante, right? How about the people who are in charge of putting this team together? No quarterback. They get Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is a guy who can play very well for a couple of games. Now his time is up. People come at the receivers and say, we're divas. You know, some of the biggest divas are people in front office who try to put squares through circles and say it'll fit. You know Davante Adams, what situation he's in right now with the Las Vegas Raiders?
Hit me.
He's in this situation, and we'll be done with this question almost. I love Stevie Wonder. Bro, Stevie Wonder is awesome. Love him.
100%.
I mean, I get down with some Stevie, especially on the golf course. But here's one of the things.
Oh, I thought you meant playing with Stevie on the golf course. I was like, Steve, you're going to whoop his ass.
But asking if Davante can play and saying, is he the problem? It's like painting a picture of Stevie Wonder and then getting upset at Stevie that he doesn't appreciate the painting. Bro, he can't see. Davante is running exceptional routes. He's doing all he can do. And what you got him out there playing with? Gardner Minshew. That's the problem. Okay. You didn't draft a quarterback. Okay. You did not fix the issues you had, and you're expecting your receiver to fix the quarterback reading coverage, the quarterback making the right adjustments. Bro, I would be out of there too. Trade me.
I've done a little work, Steve.
Listen, he's with Jordan. Make my Jordan cleats in a different color because it ain't going to be with the Las Vegas Raiders. Bro, I don't blame him.
Yeah. My question was not putting any blame on Davante.
I just went to bat for him because everybody keeps throwing him under the bus as if he was in a draft room saying, hey, yeah, let's get us a tight end that no quarterback will be able to throw him the football. Hey, let's get this guy. They've been making mistakes for a few years.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I was at that game, talking to people with the Raiders. It's ready to happen. They'd like it to happen as quickly as possible.
They want it to happen because what? What is he doing?
I think there's a variety.
What is he doing that seems to be such a problem? Desiring to win? Oh, how dare he? Want to catch passes so he doesn't get asked to reduce his salary? I'm appalled. Go across the middle when your quarterbacks hang you out to dry at times? How dare he?
Listen, from their perspective, Steve, it's a couple of things. One, they feel like he's kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out for a little over a year now.
How many head coaches has he had?
Listen, I'm telling you about you asked me.
And I'm answering. As you say it, I answer. He's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Which 2 feet should he put in? And how should he put it in? Pause.
Pause. Listen, I understand what you're saying. I mean, what was orchestrated by the previous regime in terms of general manager Dave Ziegler and head coach Josh McDaniels was what? We're going to have you come here and play with Derek Carr, who you wanted to come and play with. Then we're going to bench Derek Carr and release Derek Carr. We're not going to get anything for Derek Carr. And then we're going to have you start playing with what we have moving forward. We're
going to have you play with less.
I understand where Davante's coming from.
And all you did is you put that man in a NASCAR race with not even a good stick shift, like a 79 Volkswagen Beetle.
Just going to catch repeatedly, sticky clutch, if you will. My point of this is I wanted to push this forward a little bit too, Steve, because of where he's landing and what kind of receiver is going to be, is available right now. He's going to be 32 on Christmas Eve. When he last played, which was after week 4, he was 8th in the league in catches, 13th in receiving yards, and you kind of summed up the situation he was making those plays in. I will say this, talking to some people with the Raiders, being at that game on Sunday against the Broncos, they have never questioned his effort during game time. That's nothing that they've ever kind of even thought was an issue.
Good.
They believe he gives it everything when he's
That's
out
good
there
to know.
playing for them on Sundays, and he can still play. That's the point I want to make, is can he still play? The interesting part to me is talking to some people around the league, offensive coordinators, kind of receiver coaches, just asking about Davante and prepping for this kind of conversation. And this is the take I wanted you to have. It was really interesting to hear a couple of them kind of have a similar sentiment, and it's essentially this. A receiver as good as Davante, and by the way, all of them said he can still play.
Thank you.
Oftentimes, the quarterback plays a bigger role in the type of receiver Davante Adams is than you understand as a casual fan. And it's this, that a better quarterback will make him even more effective, because oftentimes quarterbacks that are not at the top of their game or top of this group, they don't think he's open when actually he is open.
Correct.
Coaching staffs oftentimes do not think he's open when he is open. When he played with Aaron Rodgers, A-Rod knew that he was still open, and I'm going to still give him the ball and allow him to make plays. You need a quarterback, I was told by multiple people, you need a quarterback that's going to go out there and trust that he's still going to make the play, and they throw it his way, even when everything kind of shows he's not entirely open, because that quarterback understands that he is open in that situation if the ball's put in the right place and you let him make plays. What do they mean, essentially, by what I'm being told?
First of all, you're saying that you need a competent quarterback. That's what you need, a quarterback who understands what it means to be open in the National Football League. And then it also goes with trust. A lot of times we put too much into, does the quarterback trust me? Well, let's flip this. Now, the receiver who's going to be 32 Christmas Eve, how about, does he trust me? Because he's done more work in this. His body of work, the depth of his file in the file cabinet is tremendously deeper. And it has a lot more files and papers in there compared to the dude that's throwing him the football. And so that's the problem. And sometimes you're giving the keys to a person who's under qualified, who doesn't even need to be the starter, should be the backup. But circumstances, desperate. So you give a guy a job that shouldn't be playing with Davante Adams. And now the question is, he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. He can play, man.
So my point with that, Steve, I love the angle you went with it, because to me, do you have to, as a receiver, go up to your quarterback who doesn't know you? I mean, he wouldn't have this conversation with Aaron Rodgers. Do you say, you got to trust me in this situation, man? Give me the ball.
Man, that's a touchy subject. Sometimes you can't go up to a quarterback and tell him, hey, bro, I'm open. Because then he's going to take that. One, his ego is be like, well, he's telling me open. I'm not going to throw it to him now that he's open. You can say that doesn't happen. It does. It's a combination, right? And so based on how things are, and also, too, it comes with how you approach it. Now, I haven't spoken to Davante. I'm not going to act like I have. So I'm not going there. I can only go from my own past experiences. I could be a little bit unique. How about that word?
I like it.
And so in being unique, sometimes you can come up to a guy with that bravado or kind of that bad energy, bad juju's like, yo, and you're not intending it to be that way, but you come up because it's like the 10th time, right? I've had a quarterback tell me, no, it wasn't this quarterback. Well, no, it was just, I've had a quarterback tell me,
okay,
man, you shouldn't have released that way. Excuse me? I shouldn't have released that way. And then I proceeded to correct the quarterback. I said, First of all, you shouldn't be looking at my release. That's way too early to look at my route. You should be looking at the safety to keep him out of the area when you're supposed to throw me the football. So those are sometimes the conversations that go on that you don't see, that is sometimes in practice you can build chemistry or you can erode at the chemistry. But at the end of the day, every receiver needs a quarterback, and every quarterback needs a receiver.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And when these two people start to feel like they don't need each other, that's when it's time to go.
Underdog is bringing you Boost-tober. New promos and special offerings each day of this month. Check the Underdog app and follow us online to stay up to date on all we've got brewing this month. Robert Saleh fired as the Jets head coach, Steve.
I thought he'd at least make it through the season. They fired him right now.
It's wild. This seems to happen. Let's just say this. I don't know why, but it seems to happen to a lot of coaches when they're coming back across the pond from London. For some reason, after a London game, it is a thing in the NFL. It has happened numerous times. This is a team that we thought, Steve, had a lot riding on this season, right?
Do.
For Robert Saleh, for a Super Bowl window that's about this big with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, the move you made to go get him. You'd say that this offense, as we mentioned, stagnant, lacking creativity are some of the things that I hear.
Bro, I'm sitting there.
Tell me this. I mean, you're in shock.
I'm not
everything
in shock,
I mentioned,
actually.
And everything that's riding on this year.
I'm not in.
I know. Yeah, but didn't you think they'd get the year to see if they could do it?
No, I didn't. Here's why. You go backwards and look at some of the coaching staff guys, some of those guys took other jobs. They were maybe a DB coach that went to another team, that DB coach. They didn't get upgraded. Those guys left because they realized the writing was on the wall. One of the biggest things that I've always wondered is Robert Saleh's got credit for running that defense, got credit for being such a defensive-minded coach. However, he wasn't really calling the defense, and I don't understand why he never promoted his defensive coordinator, gave him his credit that was due on doing that. And I think that has to do with a coach wanting to make sure that they can still create and have a job for themselves. If this job doesn't work out as a head coach, they can fall back into the coordinator role that really got them the eventual head coaching job. So it's going to be interesting to see how the New York Jets improve.
I would also say this has been brewing, right? We have seen it publicly from one press conference to the next press conference. Robert Saleh gets up there. Maybe Aaron's cadence is just a little too much, and we got to dial it back. Aaron gets up there. No, I think the cadence is fine. I think we got to correct our mistakes and hold everybody accountable on this offense to make sure that they can handle the cadence that Aaron Rodgers, obviously he's going to say that because it's been one of his superpowers as an offensive general at the line of scrimmage. How many times has he drawn guys off sides and gotten free plays, Steve, because of that cadence? It's been unbelievable. How much do you think, and let's just say what it is, the friction that we have seen between Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers played a role in this departure of Robert Saleh?
I don't think it's well, yes, it is the friction, but it's not the friction of Aaron Rodgers doesn't like Robert Saleh. I think Robert Saleh I don't think he's done an effective job of managing the team. Throwing your quarterback, first of all, you throw your quarterback under the bus in the offseason to say that he has an unexcused absence in minicamp when you already knew he wasn't going to be there.
Yeah, break that down for me, Steve. What did happen in the offseason?
So when you have what they call your exit physical, the league and the teams have you fill out a little piece of paper that says, hey, if you have any plans of traveling, you don't have to have the exact date, but if you have a range, that'll be good, because if we call you seeking something, whether it be a drug test or something that may be with the league, and you happen to be out of the country, they just like to know what's your future plans in the offseason. I've done it. A lot of players do it. Hey, from here, thinking about going here and there. I know Aaron had his big trip scheduled and told the team. But yet, Saleh comes up and says, it's unexcused. You didn't have to say that. You knew he was going on that vacation.
Interesting.
And to say that it was unexcused, man, that just kind of shows like just the friction and I don't know. I think more of the selfishness of the head coach trying to say, hey, no one's above the team. But if I already give you a heads up, I mean, that's the offseason is what the offseason is for. You must maintain, stand in shape, but you're also given an opportunity to do some things financially where your rewards have given you, but you do endorsements, you do commercials, you do all kind of things for the offseason, and all of a sudden you didn't know about that, man. I'm not buying that. I don't buy that at all.
That's tough. This is the first time in his 25 years Woody Johnson is firing a coach mid-season. Steve, Robert Saleh, I'm looking at this right now, 20-36 during his time with the Jets. And do you make this move at 2-3? I mean, this is early in the year that you're hoping something changes with the expectations that we listed?
I think you move in this direction right now because you feel that you're kind of at a dead end and you know it's not going to improve with him at the head coaching position. So you got to just cut ties now. It's almost, do you let it go all the way in the tank? Man, that fan base is not going to allow that just because that team is too good.
Man, well, it will not be Nathaniel Hackett. It'll be Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, who's going to be the interim head coach. Nathaniel Hackett will still run the offense alongside of Aaron Rodgers, so he will not get an opportunity to slide back in and show the NFL, the other 31 teams out there, that he with another crack at the head coaching position. So it will be the defensive side of the ball that will go and take over the head coaching duties. But the interesting part about it is, Steve, it's not just the offense that has been, like we mentioned, that's maybe one of the worst games. It is the worst game we've seen Aaron Rodgers play, this previous one, in a Jets uniform. We've seen the issues with the way the offense has worked. We did think they were going to be able to hang their hat a little bit on the defense as well. You look at all the drama, though, that's been going on with this team on the defensive side as well. Hassan Reddick is still not there. I mean, these are some of the things that have been surrounding the Jets, not just recently, for months. You made a trade for Hassan Reddick, and he still is not playing for your football team, and we are into week 6.
Yeah, that one is a head scratcher because you know why he was traded. He was traded for, in hopes of a new contract. And
you knew it.
Yeah, you need a guy who's motivated. You need a guy who wants to recommit. So having him show up first. The whole reason you traded for him is because you knew the contract situation, and you knew you needed some more pass rushers. So if you decide you don't want to pay him, I don't know why you're shocked.
Yeah, Jeff Ulbrich. I will say this: he is really well liked.
Yeah, he's a great dude, man. I don't even play defense, but I roll for Jeff. He's a great dude.
Yeah, there you go. So let's see what ends up happening because he is.
How about this? Let's throw this one out there. What happens if they go on this unbelievable run?
Hey, we saw with AP last year. Like, if you can win the room, Antonio Pierce was named. You got the job. You know what I mean? If you believe in the cultural shift that the new guy can come in and do in the interim process.
That's crazy.
It can happen. And guess what? He's got a lot of games. He's got a lot of games to try to create that culture. This isn't just like a handful. This is a Christmas time, mid-December type of decision.
Yeah, but see, I don't believe
we are just into October.
I don't believe this is he has to change a culture. I think he's gonna keep the culture what it is. I think the message is actually not going to be watered down and switched every week. I believe that that's going to be the difference. I mean, you look at the Jets and Robert Saleh and what was going on. Every week it was constantly something. And it wasn't necessarily from the players. It was the inconsistency of the head coach throwing up mixed messages throughout the offseason, during the season. So that tells me he doesn't need to change the culture. He needs to really make sure the players can really trust that the head coach won't flip the script every week, depending on the outcome.
Yeah. To wrap this up, I'll just make one final point, Steve. If you do it this early into the season, what does that say about ownership? Because should you have started the season with him? Should this have been a decision that should have been made in the offseason?
Here's the issue with that is in the offseason, you have conversations. And in those conversations, you and I both know, just as you know, being husbands, being fathers, and you have these conversations and you know you walk away and things are like this, and then they walk away and they come back and it's like, what happened? So I think that was the case is where when your job is on the line at times, you're going to say things that pop up in your head that may not be necessarily what you believe or fully committed on, but you're also not trying to lose that check either. And so I think you get painted in a corner and you start writing checks and making commitments that then as the season goes on early and that pressure mounts that you realize you can't do it. For him to get fired after the Minnesota game, here's the problem. Is that because you had an expectation that you were going to beat the Minnesota Vikings? Or is it that the Minnesota Vikings are showing you with some good coaching, the right people in place, you can do some things with less than a coach? I'm not really sure because over the last couple of years under Robert Saleh, they've had some dynamic football players. They've had some good players. But for whatever reason, man, it's just not working out. And how they've handled things just hasn't been great.
Hey, to add insult to injury, Steve, you know who was quarterbacking that team of the Minnesota Vikings that just went and beat you over there in London? It was your former number 2 overall pick in San Francisco.
Hold on now. Robert Saleh didn't pick him, so let's give him a little bit of grace on that.
No, he did not. No, he
just
did not.
want to make sure.
Just correlating
just gotta
all
point
the
that
different
out.
things that are together. Robert Saleh was not part of that. Patients were growing a little bit thin at the end of last year. That's why I was curious about you give it one more year. I guess you give it one more year if they're winning. Rodgers. Yep. And you didn't get a chance to see this Aaron Rodgers plan come to fruition last year. You saw it for 4 snaps, so maybe you give Robert Saleh another year, even though ownership was kind of like at the end of the last year going, I'm not sure if this is exactly where we want to be, and then they end up pulling the trigger early here at 2-3, and we'll see where the Jets go from here moving forward. But this is obviously not what Woody Johnson or anybody wanted with the Jets. Wowzers is a really good way to put it, Steve. We're going to start our quick slants. We got 3 topics right here, and I'm starting with the Buffalo Bills. Through 3 games, this was a hot offense. They were rolling.
Were they?
You and I were talking about Josh Allen. He's the MVP of the league.
Were they?
Through 3 games. Well, were they is the question. Because last week against the Texans, he goes 9 for 30. Yeah. That's a 30% completion rate, and that is the lowest for any quarterback that has thrown 30 passes in a game in the last 30 years. And you go to the previous week, they were dreadful in the first half. This week, they were dreadful in the first half. Have defenses figured out this Bills offense right now?
Yes, they have. They figured it out. They say, hey, these guys don't have any wide receivers on the outside that we fear. Not one of them. And this is not a slight to any of them. The biggest thing that I see out of their young rookie receiver, Coleman,
Keon
Coleman, isn't he can't play. He can play. He's a heck of a football player. I believe he's out of position.
Oh, okay.
I believe that they have put him out of position. Listen to this, right? Sometimes I'm watching a game, me and you a text, and I'm like, bro, there is something going on, right?
Yeah, you do.
Lined up 163 of his 174 offensive snaps this year, thus far. 91 times he's been on wide left, and 72 times he's been lined up wide right. Here's the problem. You ready?
I'm ready.
He's lined up as a isolated receiver 73 snaps this season. He's averaging 2 yards of separation this season. Now, he can run Fastest on his 49-yard touchdown, 19.35 miles per hour. So he can run.
Only catch of the day.
Yes. However, coming out of college, I said he gets stuck out of his brakes, drifts out of his brakes. When you drift, that means you allow the DB to undercut. He doesn't separate as much as you hope for and gets outside of his framework a lot. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is he doesn't win right away, which Josh Allen will go off of you so fast. And so I believe he's out of position. You put him in the slot, give him a mismatch against a smaller DB. Listen, when he was playing against Jalen Ramsey, against Miami, they won that game. But he was getting clamped down. I'm talking about toast, jam. They were right there, okay? And so when your quarterback drops back and he sees you getting jammed, he's not going to go, let me throw it. He's going to look the other way. If you put this young man in the slot against bigger linebackers, against some of them that are not as fast as him in that short area, you give him a chance to really impact the game. But putting him outside at X wide receiver, stationary stand, no motion, and just saying our guy can beat your guy, man, he's not going to do it. Not consistently. Not the first day of school. You're setting him up for a really average rookie season, but he's not an average receiver.
Now let me ask you this: I understand the move and set him up to succeed is what you're supposed to do as a coach.
Supposed to.
I'm curious if that fixes the Bills' issues. Because I'm asking around, I'm talking to DCs, I'm going, what's the situation here? And they go, your best playmakers are in the middle of the field. Your tight ends and your backs and the screen game, and everything's thrown there. What you can do is you can just put your corners outside and say, listen, we're going to leave you alone out there. You can handle this wide receiver group outside the numbers. Then we're going to take our resources and we're going to do what, Steve? We're going to put them elsewhere because we don't have to worry about out there. What did the Texans do? They used those resources to go after Josh Allen and keep pressuring him because they got extra bodies to do it. They hit him 9 times. Probably should have hit him out of the game, honestly. Unreal.
Man, here's you talk about that. You got Curtis Samuel, who's a number 3 wide receiver. He was at Ohio State. Joe Brady is very familiar with him. He was in Carolina with him. At that time, he was a top 5 in third down catches that you can get you in the first downs. Then he went to the Washington Commanders and got a pretty good contract and realized the contract and the responsibility, the ability to fulfill those responsibilities, about there. Huge gap right there. That gap was so big, they said, hey, we're going to let you go because we would rather deal with the dead money than not have the production on the field. And so now you have Curtis Samuels playing with the Buffalo Bills as a number 3 or 4, but he's become your number 2. He's not a number 2. And so you have a lot of guys who potentially should be on special teams, and you be adding to your offense as a guy who can come in and spell your starters, give them a breather. Those guys are playing right now.
Isn't that my point?
Yeah, they're not
right?
They're not very good. Yeah. Right? Holland,
you don't need.
He's
a
great player.
Case, you don't need to worry about him out there.
You don't need to. I mean, you can. I'm not even gonna say what I was just about to say. I was going. Ooh, something I was going to say. It was going to be mean. We don't need to do that. Nope. Stop, Smitty. We're not doing that.
But do you get what I'm saying? I understand everything you're saying about Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, if you will. You're looking at this receiver group and where it stands. If they don't have the lead, Steve, I don't know how this is sustainable to try to come back in games when you're down if this is what you're dealing with and this is the way defenses are having it. I texted one defense coordinator. I said, I said, hey, I kind of listed what I said to you, and I said, so are the Bills, is the offense figured out? And they said, yep. Mm-hmm. The offense figured out right now, which is why they were interested in Davante Adams.
Should be.
Because they know for a fact go look at Minnesota. They've replaced Stephon Diggs with who? Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Then Stephon Diggs leaves Buffalo, and you replace him with essentially Keon Coleman. Maybe this grows as the year goes on. Do you see it growing? Do you think Bills fans have something
something's
to worry
gonna
about?
grow.
Or can a rookie? It's a big spot you're putting a rookie into
It's an
in a team that
unfair
is
spot you're putting a rookie into. And yes, it does grow.
Okay.
Here's what grows: frustration, losses.
Oh, okay.
That's what's gonna grow because they don't have a fix. Dalton Kincaid can play. Knox, they can play. Like you said, middle of the field. But now you balled that up with blitzes and having people out there look like an end's coming, but he's dropping out. All of that stuff, and then you run a TE
Everything's
games.
in here.
So you keep everything, you play everything in between the hashes. You keep them condensed, contained. You have a spy. And the way Josh is playing right now, uncomfortable, he doesn't stay in the pocket long enough to decide to throw to my guy or not. He's going, I got to get out of here. It's hot.
It's interesting, man. It's going to be interesting to see how this changes, how they adapt, because that's the way the league works, right? Everybody figures you out. You got to change something. But I'm just curious if they have the personnel to adapt back.
They don't. Unfortunately, I love the coaching staff. I love the team. I love the fan base. You're not going to be able to will these wins. You're going to have to actually play good football. And I don't think offensively they really have that right now unless they can get a Davante Adams or someone on their roster that can really kind of show up in a way that's consistent.
Two things as we close this out. One, they wouldn't be looking at Davante Adams if they thought the receiver position was fine. They wouldn't be looking at receivers if they thought the position was fine. Two, one defensive coordinator told me the way things went through the first 3 games, it's just not sustainable throughout the course of a season to run your offense that way. Another one, let's move on to a team that does have the personnel to get to the Super Bowl right now, as is, if nothing changes, Detroit Lions. I mean, they're loaded pretty much everywhere. And what I'm hearing around the league is this. It's kind of the way it used to be when you played San Francisco a few years back. And I want to know if this ever happened in your career. When you play a team like the Lions this season, you are feeling them the next week when you play your game. They are so physical, the type of style of football that they play, and it bleeds into your next game. To drive home this point, let's see this. First game, the Rams. The next week after they played the Lions, lost to the Cardinals 41-10. Bucks beat the Lions, but the next week they lost to the Broncos 26-7. Cardinals lost to the Lions. The next week they lose to the Commanders 42-14. Seahawks play the Lions. Next week they lose to the Giants 29-20. Every team that has played the Lions has lost the next week, and in some of them in kind of embarrassing fashion. Steve, what is this from a player's perspective that we're seeing the impact? Because I'm kind of hearing it takes something out of you to play this team.
Well, because they understand their identity. The Detroit Lions, led by Dan Campbell, understand what kind of – Dan is an old school dude, right? So he understands exactly how and what you want to do. And imposing your will and just trying to play the long game. If you're a physical team, and think about this in comparison, physical teams and physically prepared is one of the things that's different. Dan, within the rules, understands what it looks like to play old school physical football. So the Underwear Olympics and looking good is no longer about that for Dan and that team. When you look at all these teams, look at the San Francisco 49ers, how beat up they are. Look at all of the players, how beat up they are right now. Because the biggest issue I believe that's going on in the National Football League has to do with the safety, and the safety of the players has almost become hazardous to themselves because we are making sure that we don't get hurt in preseason. But you don't have any muscle endurance for the long haul of the season. You know, they hit in the regular season. They run, they jump, get tackled, fall, run 2 minutes. Well, all of a sudden you see guys where they make a touchdown and all of a sudden they're coming up limp in the middle of the play. That's just a lack of physicality that they don't have in these training camps anymore. They're not practicing anymore during preseason, so they're just really kind of dipping their toe in the water and learning how to swim in the swimming pool. But unfortunately, when you get in the ocean and you have the riptides and you have all of the elements, Then all of a sudden
Yeah.
you realize, ooh, this is a little bit different. And that's what the Detroit Lions are, to pull it back full circle. The Detroit Lions are the ocean. The Detroit Lions are like when you run, you go jog on the street, the elements, right? The pounding of the pavement. All of those things that you're not prepared because you're at the comfort of your home and you have the treadmill and it doesn't incline or decline. You just have it go straight and you're just jogging along, looking all cute. But all of a sudden, you get out on that pavement and it just a little sting. You're like, oh. You know, that first, listen, right now in the first 2 quarters, it's the first mile. And if you're a runner, you know in the first mile, you feel everything. You know if your shoelaces are too tight. You know if your socks, did I wear the right t-shirt? My headphones are slipping. Like, you start to feel and notice things about your body in that first mile that you didn't even know exist. You know what that's called? Being uncomfortable. That's called being out of shape when you're not ready. And that's what the Detroit Lions bring to this game. They're bringing a physicality. They may not win the game, but they sure got you questioning yourself after and moving forward of how tough is your team.
Yeah, you look at that offensive line, the way David Montgomery runs you over, Steve. They know how to get physical. If you want to see how preparation maybe could be, some of these teams should go up to St. Joseph, Missouri, and see how Andy Reid runs a training camp. Because those guys are going long drive, day in and day out. They are grinding up there. It's one of the biggest things that Andy Reid always emphasizes during training camp. I thought of this. I got to mention it real quick. You mentioned Dan Campbell's an old school coach. You look at Dan Campbell, the build that he has, Steve. Give me maybe, is there a coach that could go out and give you a few snaps? Is it Dan Campbell? The other one that comes to mind is maybe DeMeco Ryans. Who can give me a handful of snaps as a head coach right now on a Sunday?
Oh, I would say a lot of coaches could give you a handful of snaps. Or maybe it's like long snappers, holders.
I think DeMeco could give you 10
I think
snaps.
he could too.
Playing what he played when he played in the league.
Goodness. Yeah, here's the
He's in
problem.
great
Though.
shape.
He'd give you 10 snaps and then he'd be on IR for the next 3 years. Because
He could coach in a chair.
man, it's just as
chair.
when you're playing in the game and that adrenaline and all that stuff, man, it's great. I played in a flag football tournament a couple of years back. It was like a turkey bowl for charity. We had 3 games.
Yep.
3 games. Bro, I lasted a game and a half and strained both hamstrings. Both on one play. Like the first game, I was feeling good. Second game, pow. I was playing DB and receiver. Bro, I grabbed a dude so bad.
Oh, Travis Hunter out there.
I was so bad. I was like, oh, I already know this is going. But I couldn't let him catch it on me because that was my last play. Bro, by the third game,
like, guys, you know what? You guys got the great Steve Smith for a minute. I'm out.
Hey, they made it to the championship or like the playoffs, and my son texted me, Pop, how you feeling? Bro, I was in the tub when they played the third game in Epsom salt, playing Stevie Wonder, baby.
Playing Stevie Wonder.
Done so.
All right, listen. Last of our quick slants. Are the Cincinnati Bengals cooked, Steve? They are 1-4. Joe Burrow said he needed to play nearly perfect to get a win over the Ravens. He threw for 392 and 5 touchdowns, and they lost. He played nearly perfect. Right now, this is going to be a Chris Canty take, which I still don't understand. Joe Burrow is not the problem.
He's not.
Second in the NFL in completion percentage. Number 1 in the NFL in touchdown passes. He got 12. He's only got 2 picks. Second in QB rating behind Joe Flacco. By the way, I just had to put that out there for you. Guys played a game and a half. Joe's number 1. And he's 6th in passing yards. Are the Bengals cooked, Steve, or can they make a run and come back into the swing of things in the AFC?
That's a great word. Run. How about that? If you run the football and stop putting everything on the pass game, that might help you. But until they figure out that they need to run the football, which we have this conversation every year. Every Bengals fan says this every year for the last couple of years. And the problem is that they're throwing the football so much and they don't have an effective run game. Why? Don't care. You got to force yourself to run the football because if not, you're going to find yourself 1-5 and 1-6. I don't think they're done. I think they need to figure out what they need to do and stick with it.
I think what they need to do, Steve, is they need to figure out how to finish games. And you played in this league for a long time, and finishing games is important. They've lost games because of their defense late. They've lost games because of their offense late. They lost games. We saw it a bad snap because of their special teams late. They won that game against the Ravens. If it's a proper hold, Evan McPherson's he's a pretty high-paid kicker. He makes a lot of kicks, big kicks. And so I think if they learn how to finish, that's a big part of it. We know the way the defense has been playing. Lou Anarumo has his hands full with the group that he has. He's a really good defensive coordinator, but it's difficult. But I look at what they've done. Like, you see that Ravens game. Are they a Super Bowl contender?
No.
I'd say, yeah. They had that game won. You don't think so? Okay.
No,
I think the
hold on,
Chiefs
hold on.
are
Go
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
The what if doesn't happen, bro. Like, I understand what you're saying.
Oh, of course.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying this is why I don't think they're cooked.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think they're cooked. I think they have put themselves in a deficit that they have to be.
Yes.
What you said, nearly perfect, 395 yards, still doesn't get you to win. It's a huge mountain to climb with Sabatos on, okay? You just can't do it that way.
My son uses that word all the time. Listen, my point is this. They've been close in a lot of these games. They're a PI call away from beating the Chiefs.
A PI call
they should have
away.
beat the Ravens.
Still got the loss.
I'm just telling you that they're not getting blown out. I mean, they're in a lot of these games. They just can't finish games. They can't fit. That's my point. They're losing the games because they can't finish. That's my point. If they figure out how to finish.
When are they going to figure it out? They're not figuring it out with some of the injuries they sustain. If you can't figure it out with the starters, you think you're going to figure it out with the backups?
Well, I think you could figure it out when you got, let's see. They got the Giants, then the Browns, and then they had the Eagles, the Raiders. They could potentially be 5-4.
Yeah, that's true. So is that figuring it out, or they're just playing a lesser opponent?
Well, hopefully you figure it out playing lesser opponents. We happen at the same time.
I love how I caught you on that one. You were like,
Yeah, I mean, happen at the same time. Underdog is bringing you Boost-tober. New promos and special offerings each day of this month. Check the Underdog app and follow us online to stay up to date on all we've got brewing this month. Steve, I like to go to a game every single week. I had a home game this week. I wanted to see what's going on with the Raiders and Davante Adams. I wanted to see what was going on with these Denver Broncos who won 2 games on the road. They go to Tampa. They stay at the Greenbrier in West Virginia to stay on the East Coast in the time zone. I didn't really understand it. And then they play the Jets. They win both those games 2 in a row. Can they come back, make it 3 in a row? And something happened on the sideline. We had a bit of I'd say a shouting match between quarterback and rookie quarterback, I should say, Bo Nix, and veteran head coach Sean Payton. I'm in the press box, Steve. I pulled these out. I was in it. I was in hard.
Look at you, just like a nosy neighbor.
Yeah, I care in the hell out of this situation. And I was like, what's going on over there?
Neighborhood watch. What's going on between Bo and Sean?
And there was. And this went on. The cameras caught it as well. Of these two going back and forth at each other. I will tell you this, because I stopped watching the game. I focused on this. It went on a lot longer than the cameras caught. I mean, it went on long enough for it to lead over to the bench.
Yeah,
Davis Webb, the quarterback coach, is there.
I did see Davis, the quarterback coach.
Davis kind of barked back at Sean a little bit.
Like, bro, let it go.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man.
And then it went over with the receivers. Cortland Sutton had to get there in the middle of it. He kind of kept trying to calm people down.
You know you're in trouble when the brother got to get in the middle.
It starts to bleed over to the bench and the receivers. Cortland kind of calming everybody down. He's always a peacemaker type guy. Then they come back out on the field, and this was the end of the third quarter. Fourth quarter comes out. Bo leads a drive right down. He runs, jumps over the line for a rushing touchdown. He comes back to the sideline, Steve. They kind of have their distance there. There's no interaction between Sean Payton and Bo Nix.
I done been at that moment with Sean on the opposing team. You look at him.
And I'm going to get into that because that is Sean's personality.
That sure is.
Eventually they come back together. They argue again. And they start having words again. Mike McGlinchey, who's on IR, the veteran, kind of comes in, puts his shoulder on Bo Nix's hand. His hand on Bo Nix's shoulder, kind of gets in there a little bit. And then it ends with Bo Nix kind of hitting Sean Payton on the back, turn around, laughing, gives a high five to McGlinchey. And it kind of went full circle in a sense like that. This is what I gathered in the locker room afterwards. Multiple offensive players told me, my quarterback's got some shit to him. My quarterback's got some swag to him.
Well, he's 25 years old.
But what did they see a year before on the sideline, Steve, when Sean Payton went after Russell Wilson? What did Russ do? Just took it. He just took it. There was no bark back. Sean likes, if you know Sean Payton, he likes if a player fights back a little bit. He wants to see your personality. And I know for a fact, talking to people in that organization, Sean liked that Bo fought back a little bit. Stood his ground for what he thought he should have been doing right. Play should have been flipped. I mean, a play was one way. Bo had it flipped. By the way, he still threw an absolute dime down the field, but it was dropped by Troy Franklin in the end zone. It was a monster throw. These are the type of things, and we talked about it last week, Steve, about Tom Brady saying this isn't Disneyland. You want to get some things accomplished? These conversations, say it from a player's perspective, happen on the sideline, especially when you're trying to establish something new offensively.
Well, what that has to do with a little bit is frustration because of these coaches. First of all, I respect the heck out of Sean Payton. You know, I played against him for a number of years across the sideline. And Sean is spicy, man. Sean will tell you what he thinks of you. He'll try to get in your head as an opponent. But I can tell you this. You remember, what was it, last year? I think it was last year. Last year when they kind of showed the TV copy showed Sean's playbook. I mean, his play calls.
Play card?
Yeah.
Yep.
You remember that?
Call sheet?
Can I tell you, one of the reasons is Bo Nix is frustrated is Sean is still running plays from 2009 when Agent 89 was playing on offense, and I had Jeff Davison as my offensive coordinator. Sean's playbook is extremely old, bro. And he's not running anything new. You know there's no real RPO game because that's not Sean's offense. He hasn't updated his database a little bit. Yeah, after they've had to
because he sees Bo can move a little bit. Yeah.
They just don't know. I don't think Sean's offense really is built around the RPO game, and it's frustrating because Sean he stays up late. He does a really good job of play design, but his play design are kind of older. The play designs that Sean Payton is running right now, and Sean Payton is getting credit, and Bo Nix is getting credit. The guy who is not getting any credit, they don't want to give credit to, is Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator.
Coaching his tail off.
Coaching his tail off, and yet the quarterback whisperer, Sean Payton, is getting all the credit. Again, I know Sean's probably going to hear this and text me. I love Sean. But I also know Sean's offense is a little bit, it's kind of like me, it's old. It's just old.
Can it still work, Steve? Because I know there's guys that were open last year.
It can still work, but it can work because of who's at the quarterback position and can that quarterback overcome and play better than his coaching. And what do I mean by that?
Okay.
Man, every position and every team has a positional coach. But I'm going to tell you right now, not every positional coach in the National Football League has helped a Pro Bowler become a Pro Bowler. Some of those Pro Bowlers were Pro Bowlers no matter where you were. You just get the credit. You didn't do nothing. You may help them a little bit, and I'm not trying to take it away, but I'm also kind of saying they go hand in hand, right? To make a good sandwich, you got to have what? Non-stale bread, some condiments.
That's a given.
Lettuce, tomato. Like, nobody has a great BLT with no BLT. They all have to go together. And
I get it.
And I'm just saying that sometimes some of these coaches get more credit than they deserve, and then they go to another team, and everybody's going, whoa, was it Drew or was it Sean? I think it was both. But now we're seeing also Sean's going to have to update his database. That man he's still over there playing DVDs and 8-tracks.
Put it on a floppy disk? It's over there on the Oregon Trail on the computer.
Yeah. And here's what I mean. Just a small little connection. If you go back, he used to work for NFL Network. Where did Sean Payton, where they used to usually do their training camp when he was with the New Orleans Saints?
West Virginia.
Where'd they stay?
West Virginia, Greenbrier.
Just saying.
Helped design it, I believe.
Just saying.
I believe he helped design it. Now, the part that I want to touch on as well is, Steve, in the post-game press conference, Sean Payton says to us, this Bo Nix got a little Ferris Bueller to him. And I remember the movie. I've seen it a million times. Ferris Bueller is mischievous, doesn't like authority, doesn't really show up for school, which I don't think these are Bo Nix qualities, honestly. Doesn't really want to do what anybody tells him. And I think what Sean's getting at, because I don't think those are Bo Nix qualities from everything I've been told about the type of worker he is and what he does. I think Sean's, and you said you know Sean, so tell me if this is right. Bo did some things that Sean did with his plays on that call sheet we're talking about, going, no, this is the way I wanted it. I didn't want it flipped. Is that what he's getting at?
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what he's getting at. All I know, I've been in a huddle long enough. All I know, sometimes some of the best plays have been ran the wrong way.
And that was a great play that was run the wrong way. And Bo kind of said it, but he also said post-game, Steve, we came out of the huddle wrong. And I didn't think play clock, all that stuff, we had time to flip everything back.
That was
the way
on purpose.
It was supposed to be. So we just ran it the way it was. And
that
he
was
did it on purpose.
The call in was, I right. Bo said, I left.
But I will say this, to wrap it up. I think this is a positive for the direction that they want to go as a duo for Bo Nix and Sean Payton, because I think Sean likes a little fight. Sean comes from who, Steve? Who's his mentor? Who's the guy he brings up all the time? Bill Parcells, right? Brings him up all the time. And this is as Sean said it, my love language. It's Bill's love language too. You go back and forth and you go at it. Sean loves a little fight. And I think he realized his quarterback does too. And you're looking always for a cohesion between play caller and quarterback, right? You're looking for any way to get that chemistry to go together. And maybe this is what is going to work for these two. They've won 3 straight. Let's see.
They won 3 straight. Are you including Vance Joseph in that 3 straight?
I said they as in the Broncos.
Just making sure.
I saw VJ in the locker room. I kind of patted him on the shoulder. I said, I'm not sure if you watched London this morning, but Flo stole a couple of things you did to Aaron Rodgers last week. He said, yeah, I saw. Yeah, I saw.
Hey, Vance Joseph, good dude, man.
He's been coaching phenomenal.
Going against his defense, I've always had to study extra because his detailedness is crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
He's been bringing it, man. It's one of the best coaching jobs we're seeing this season.
So the question would be,
he might have the defensive player of the year on his team.
The question would be, is Vance Joseph a better coordinator or head coach?
This is going to be a conversation we have on the next show. Are some guys destined and just a better fit to be a great coordinator? And is that okay? I think we have that conversation on the next show, Steve. Because I think we're seeing it in a few places right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing it in Minnesota. We're seeing it in Kansas City. And we're maybe seeing it in Denver right now, too. You want to have that conversation next week?
Sure. Why not? Now, if they all mess around and lose, then we're in trouble.
I think the Chiefs and Vikings are on a bye. Bang. So we're good. Yes. See you next week, Steve.
I'll see you next week. Hopefully, I can get my technology up and running. Hey, balling on a budget. That's that retired life.
Balling on a budget.